If you follow us here at KJH Woodworking, you would have seen us make this crosscut sled last video. But what happens if you want to cut an accurate 90-degree angled cut? You can't use this jig. So what we're going to do today is make a half crosscut sled with a sacrificial fence. You want to see how we do that? Stick around. Feeling a little bit like deja vu here, but basically fence glue up time. So take two of the pieces you've cut. I'm using 75 high by the width of the sled, and we're going to glue it up. We're going to clamp it straight edge, just like in the last video, which is going to keep it dead straight when the glue dries. The other thing we're going to do is make sure you're working on a flat surface that you know is true and flat. So my miter bench is 100% flat, so I'm confident with that. So all I'm going to do is glue, sit it flat down, line everything up. I'm going to put two brad nails in each edge just to hold it in place, and then we're going to clamp it together, let the glue set, and then we'll assemble. You might be wondering why we didn't integrate a stop block or a T-track into this into the fence we just glued up. Is because 99.9% of the time I will have a sacrificial fence on the sled. I will use this sled mainly for box making. So basically I will rip my parts on the crosscut sled, then I'll cut my 45-degree angle on this sled. So I'm always gonna have a sacrificial fence, and I won't really be doing repeatable cuts on this sled. So what we will do is with that sacrificial fence, we're gonna drill a couple of holes. So we'll come in 1/3 each way, find center, and that will house a sacrificial fence clamp. Basically, it's a clamp with a little pin on the end that will sleeve in place, clamp on, and then the fence will be clear all the time. So all you want to do, get your diameter of that, drill out your hole, center, and then we're good to go. Okay, that there, except for my pin, this will then clamp to my fence, keeping that perfectly in line with the fence. Once the fence is perfectly square, that should stay square and true as well. Okay, let's talk drawer runners. First, we're gonna get this all out of our way. I forgot the drawer runner. Nice and easy. So last time I used T-track. This time I'm gonna use a micro jig zero play guide system, because this time we're only gonna be running through one track, not both tracks. So I can't offset and put pressure with the tape to either side. So these need to be perfectly snug. I could rip them out of hardwood, but these were nice and easy. I'll go through the assembly. It's pretty simple. So you got 3 grub screws here. So if you loosen those off, then can slide. And in doing so, let's see if I can line this up with the camera. It expands slightly, so you get around 4 mil of play. Okay, so time to set the snugness, because every brand and every particular tool is going to have a slightly different width of a miter slot. So the kit comes with a stop block, so just find a screwdriver that fits in the hole. Mind out of the gutter, people. Cool, so that is stopped. You want to take 2 coins and slide them into your miter track. Then on the actual jig itself, it has an arrow of which way you want to put in first. So you want to put that in, because then you can push it up into that stop block. So slide it all the way back, drop it in place, then push it all the way up. You don't want to sort of jam it in tight, because you want to actually be able to move these. Tighten up your rubber screws. Take out your stop block and then test your fit. So you want to make sure that it does move, but there's no wobble. That's when you know it's set correctly. Then you're going to slide in 4 coins, 2 tracks going in this. So you want to be making sure they're all sitting up slightly higher than the top of your table. So we're actually going to need to go up 1 more coin. So go raid your child's money box. Jazz was very happy when I did that. Now pop those in. So we are slightly higher. We're going to set this slightly different to how we did the last one, because these miter slides don't actually have screw holes from the underside, so I can't screw a hole in, slide it back a little. So what we're going to do, same theory as last time, we're going to set the fence and use that as the guide, and then we're going to use some CA glue and activator. So we'll put a couple of dabs of CA glue on the high sides. Then we will take our jig, line it up, drop it in place. We'll hold it in place for about 30 seconds or so. Beautiful. Then you can flip that over. Now to fix these in place, you want to just prop your sled up slightly. Take a 2mm drill bit. So there's 3 holes in each slide that are threaded to take a screw. So you want to drill through these with the 2.5mm drill bit, which is just a locating hole. And flip it over, and you're left with all your holes here. Then take a 13mm drill bit and counterbore those holes about 5mm. Okay, make that about 10mm. Then you want to drill the rest of the way through with a 5mm drill bit. So once you've bored all your holes, sit it in place. The kit comes with screws and washers, so we'll just go ahead and screw those in. Okay, so we've got the runners installed. Now we are ready to put our fence on. So what we're going to do is cut through this whole edge so we know that that is in line with the blade. Then we can square off that, fix the fence in place. Then we're going to use the same method as we did in the last video. I'm not going to go through the 5-cut method again in as much detail, but I will link the video above and in the description below where I break it down and go through it step by step. But we'll go through that to get a perfectly square fence, and then we're good to go. Okay, to get your fence set up, you want to put in what we call the pivot screw. So all I do is line my fence up with where I want it to sit and install one screw. This screw won't move at all through the squaring up process. It just stays in the same spot. But then on the other side, that's where we will adjust the actual squareness of the fence. So go ahead and install that pivot screw, and you want to make sure you're countersinking all your screws here, because you don't want that catching and scratching the top of your table saw. Then you want to take your largest and most accurate square and square off the blade side, the fence up as much as you can at this point. And then you want to install your screw that you're going to move. Okay, we're going to go through the 5-cut method now, which is basically the method we use to square up our fence. It's called the 5-cut method because we cut the board 4 times to amplify the error before we make our 5th cut, which gives us, after some basic maths, our error per millimeter, which we can work out to our error over the length of our fence, and then we can square that up as accurately as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one initial cut, cutting the whole length of side 1. So it doesn't matter how much you take off, as long as you're taking a full pass. Then you're going to rotate that edge so that that's against the fence. Do that 4 more times. Then you're going to take off a slither of about 20mm. From there, you can work out your distance of point A and length or width of point B. Subtract the 2, and that gives us our error. Divide that by 4 because we made 4 cuts, and divide it by the length of that distance there will give us our error per millimeter. Error per millimeter times the length of the fence will then give us how much we need to move the fence to get it more accurate. So if it's a positive number, you need to move it away from yourself. If it's a negative number, bring the fence towards yourself. So let's get stuck into that. So I disappointed a 2-year-old when I stole their whiteboard and rubbed off all their drawings. So It was for a good cause, everyone. So we've gone ahead, taken measurement of A, measurement of B. So A is 16.51, B is 15.2. So when you subtract those two, you get 1.31. Divide that by 4 because we cut the board 4 times, gives us 0.3275. Divide that by the length of this piece, which is 196, gets us this number here, aka really, really small. So that gives you your error per millimeter. Multiply that by the length of your fence, by the distance from the edge of your fence to your pivot screw, gives me 0.83 millimeters over that length. So what we're gonna do is now move the fence out by that distance away from me because it's a positive number. And to do that, we're gonna use some feeler gauges, just like we did in the last video. So you wanna take your feeler gauges, whack them in position, put a block of timber using the corner. Whoops. So you want to find the corresponding feeler gauges. So I need 0.83. So I've got a 0.8 and a 0.03. We'll sit that in position. Then press this hard in place. Take a clamp your board down. Take your feeler gauge out. Unscrew that screw. What you want to do though, you want to mark your screw hole so you don't use that same screw hole again. Otherwise, it's just going to pull back in. Push that firmly into the timber you've got clamped in position. And repeat your 5 cuts. Now let's redo that math. So this time we got 11.71 and 11.74. Follow the same equation. So you take A minus B, divide that by 4, divided by the length of the offcut, times you would normally go your distance between your pivot screw and the end of your fence. But I'm actually going to do this over a meter just to show you how accurate you can get this. So over a full meter, we were out by minus 0.039. That's about a third of the thickness of a sheet of A4 piece of paper. So we got it pretty accurate and it only took us 1 try. So the method clearly works. So now we'll go ahead, screw that fence off and then put our sacrificial fence on and we're done. Okay, I lied, we're not finished yet. What I want to do now is actually make a way of putting this on the wall next to, I'm hoping you can see my other sled in over here. So I'm going to do the same thing with just a French cleat system. We're going to build a cleat, drill 2 holes out that this can actually hang on, then put a coat of finish on this, and then we are done. So jump the gun there, guys. Sorry about that. With any jig, I like to give it a paste wax finish, just gives it a slick surface to slide with. And it also gives it a bit of protection. So this is why we didn't put any T-track in there, because this is designed to house these clamps for the sacrificial fence, because now I've got to reference at whatever angle I cut it at, rather than just square. I can't see a reason I will ever use it without a sacrificial fence in place. So if I had T-track across there, those clamps would get in the way of using that as a stop block. If I wanted to use a stop block, I can still put a stop block there and just use a clamp. It's so nice having kids and finding pretty pictures on all your offcuts. Okay, to store this bad boy, we're just gonna use a cleat system that goes on my French cleat wall. And all it is 2 pins that correspond with the holes in the bottom of the jig. And then we can hang that out of the way. Oops, we might need to just reshuffle. Best thing about French cleats is we can just reshuffle to suit our new setup. That is a wrap on this one. So if you want to see this in use, subscribe to the channel and stick around because next week we are making a jewelry box for Jazz where we will use that. Cheers guys.